Next one is, what do you think about cold calling to get clients? Yeah, you can. It's tough. It does work. It sucks. Um, Honestly, I can't stand it. It's very I hate cold calling. I absolutely hate it. And it does work, but it's painful in my opinion. It's discouraging. I don't like it. I would rather, you know, do cold email outreach and have them reach out when they show some interest and then call them, because then it's at least it's a warmer lead. It's not a cold call. They're at least know who you are. They've replied to some sort of outreach method, whether it was email, SMS, whatever, even a social media post or outreach or something. But once you have one, I prefer to initiate contact in some other method first. And then when I get a positive reply back from them in any way, shape, or form, then I'll jump on a call. I don't like to do cold calls just because you're going to get rejected a lot. It's interruption marketing. I think that sucks. I don't like when I get cold called from others, which happens all the time. So I don't even answer my phone anymore. If I don't know the number, I don't answer the goddamn phone. Even if I know the number, if unless it's a scheduled call, a lot of the times I'm not going to take it because I'm already tied up in the middle of something anyways. So I don't like cold calls personally, and I don't like to do them because I don't like them myself. Like I don't like to receive them myself, so I don't like to give them out either. So I prefer cold email, right? SMS even, or social media outreach. Um, so hopefully that makes sense. Cold calls can work. It absolutely can work. It sucks. And you're going to get a lot of no's. In my opinion, you're better. Again, in my opinion, and in my own experience, probably just because I hated cold calling so much, I would rather spend the time developing and setting up things like what I've been just hammering you guys about for the last 2 years, which is like a directory and a cold email system that then I can use to send cold emails to my target audience and then I only have to start communicating with those that have expressed an interest because they responded to the cold email, right? It changes the dynamic. A cold call, you're going to get a lot of defense. People are going to put up their guards immediately. I do the same, right? I'm sure a lot of you guys too. You're combative when you get interrupted by some unsolicited call. And so it's very, very difficult to overcome that initial kind of, disgust with the fact that you were interrupted by an unsolicited call. That's difficult to overcome. And so I would rather initiate some sort of communication with my prospect or my contact with a contact via another channel or method first, and then move it on to the phone if needed or when I feel it's appropriate. Okay. In the tree service industry, by the way, it's almost entirely phone calls. They're in text messages, really. Email is just the initial starting point. Tree guys don't get on Zoom calls. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm like 1 out of 50 will get on a Zoom call. The tree guys are always on the phone or SMS. And email is usually the initial point of contact, and then we take over via phone and SMS. And that's how I manage tree guys through that. With selling to SEOs, it's almost 100% on Zoom calls, right? So all the appointments that I get booked for semantic links and such, which is where I spend most of my sales effort on sales calls for semantic links, selling SEO services to other SEOs. And for that, we're on Zoom calls all the time, right? But again, we don't cold call. We do cold email outreach, and then we initiate communication via that first. And then I have an appointment setting company that actually does calls to the people that reply positively to the cold email outreach or the social media outreach, right? Whenever they get a positive reply, then the appointment setting company now will try to book the appointment. And in some cases, they'll pick up the phone and call them to get the appointment booked. Okay. And so I do think it works. I don't think it works. I know it works, but it's discouraging. It takes a certain breed of person to be able to put up with the rejection and the names that you're going to get called over and over and over again. It literally sucks the life force out of me when to be rejected over and over and over again like that, which is why I prefer to have some sort of positive response first from another channel before I would pick up the phone to call them. Okay. Find low competition, browse websites buried on later search results pages. The problem with targeting companies that have very poor digital presences, guys, you might not, I don't know how long you've been in the industry, but I know a lot of people that do listen to these calls know exactly where I'm going with this. The problem with contacting companies that have digital presences that are basically non-existent, which means they're on page 2, 3, and beyond, right? 2 or 3 and beyond, is that they don't have any money. If they had money, they probably wouldn't be ranked, they would probably have a better presence online. Does that make sense? And trying to sell marketing services to companies that aren't already marketing, because like that's very difficult to do, because then you're trying to sell to broke companies most of the time. I'm not saying that all companies that aren't ranking aren't spending money on marketing, but generally those that are that aren't ranking are generally not spending money on marketing, at least not through digital marketing. Maybe they're generating revenue from other sources, which I'm just saying that if you start targeting, and again, ask me how I know, it's from a lot of experience. And I used to think, and I'm sure a lot of SEOs have thought the same thing. Well, I'm just going to target anybody that's on page 2 of the map search results, right? The GBP is not in the top 10. Well, yeah, but the problem is, if like a lot of the times those companies are broke. And so you might be able to convince them to work with you, but they're the ones that are always SERP watching, right? They're watching their rankings like daily. And as soon as they see something move negatively, they're calling you on the phone and complaining, right? And they're cheap anyways. Good luck trying to get a good retainer out of those companies. So the point is, I would rather target companies that are already spending money, right? So that's why I recommend targeting companies that are advertising in Google Ads, because you know that they understand the importance of spending money to generate leads from Google. That's why they're paying Google Ads, right? Target companies where you know they're spending money. Guys, I do what I call competition and location research. Here's an example. I was just doing some earlier today, specifically for looking for a new area to target for tree services, a tree service site for LLG sites, local lead generation sites in Maine. Okay, I was doing the research earlier because my 2 VAs that are building LLG sites for me, or local lead generation sites, said that they needed new projects. And so I was finding a new area for them to build a site around. And so I selected one, Portland, Maine, which is in Cumberland County, Maine, right? So I had all this stuff open so that I could do the research. And so in looking at this, what I'm getting at here is when I go to do competition research or location research to determine a low competition area that I want to target to build a lead generation, an organic only lead generation asset in, so that once I rank it, or at least get most of the pages or most of the keywords that I want to ranking for that particular project, then I can use that as a sales tool to point to when I'm pitching my services to companies in that area, right? And so what I always recommend in these SOPs and in the DHA training program is, this is Writer's End that I use for the Keyword Explorer, because of this all-in title function, which shows SEO competition metrics. Okay, that's what this is, an SEO competition metric right here. This is not 100% accurate, but it's a good indication of how many people are competing for this specific search query in the SEO title of a page, right? Okay, and what I look for when I try to do competition and location research is I look at 3 columns: search volume, all-in title, and CPC, average CPC values. And I only want to target those areas that have fairly high search volume as far as the range of search volumes go. Then I also want to try to target those that have low all-in title metrics, which means not very many pages targeting that specific search query or phrase within the SEO title. And then I look at the CPC value, because what I try to do is I just scroll through and look at the CPC values. This Maine is a small state, so there's not a lot in Maine. Some of the bigger states, like Virginia, for example, you'll see this scroll for dozens and dozens of cities. And the CPC values in Virginia range, like I'll go all the way up to $65 per click. And this is one of the areas that it's lower competition, but that doesn't mean people aren't spending money. So what I look for is in the CPC column is the range of higher CPC values, because that means there are more companies bidding on those keywords that are relevant to that industry in that specific location. So the point that I'm trying to make is I try to look at, when targeting areas for local lead generation assets, and I'm looking for low competition areas, I'm not looking to target and start communicating with companies that are on page 3, 4, and 5. I'm actually looking to talk to companies that are advertising in Google that don't have a good organic and or maps presence, right? Those are my first targets when I'm going to be doing outreach for trying to monetize my lead gen assets and to sell them additional marketing services, right? My first targets are going to be those that are already spending money, which is why I like to use the Google Ads metric, the CPC values, to identify the areas that I know there are advertisers that are spending money on generating leads from Google. Because then what I'm going to do is go scrape the advertisers first, and I'm going to and then go take a look at, are those advertisers, what does their organic and maps presence look like in Google search? Because a lot of advertisers don't have a good organic and maps presence. That's why they're spending money on ads. And so I can then go target those companies and promote, like, hey, look, I've already got an organic asset that's ranking in most of your service area right now, and you don't have that presence. I can assign this to you. I can rent it to you. Depending on how the conversation goes, I will propose to them whatever I feel is the most appropriate monetization method for that LLG site. Do I want to rent it to them on a flat monthly rental fee for typically $99 a month, which is what I usually rent my LLG sites for now? Or I can sell them on a pay per lead basis, which I'm trying to get away from that actually a little bit right now, because it's just harder to manage, and I'm looking to scale by volume. Or I could say, look, I'll tell you what, I can do this for your website too. This is what I propose. I have a Google Business SEO service, which includes optimizing your website, which I would tell them at a later time, where you're going to use one of my websites, or I'm going to provide instructions to your webmaster to optimize your existing site, because I'm not going to optimize your site for you. I'm not going to do that. I just told Huzaifa earlier that we don't do on-page. I don't do on-page for tree service contractors unless we built the site for them. I will provide recommendations and instructions for their webmaster to execute changes, but I won't do it. So just to be clear, but my point is I can then assign that site to them if they hire me to do SEO for their brand, right? And then I'll just say, look, guys, if you sign up with me, I'll assign this. Any leads generated from this site will be exclusively sent to you, right? So it's a sales tool. It gets monetized either directly or indirectly, is my point. And so to get back to the question, don't target or it's good to find low competition areas, yes, but you don't want to be wasting effort targeting those companies that don't have a decent presence already, or that you can determine are spending some sort of money on advertising, marketing and or advertising, because they're broke. There's a reason they're not spending money on advertising, marketing and advertising, because they're broke. So it's hard to, they say you can't squeeze blood from a turnip, right? It's good luck trying to sell marketing services to broke companies. It's hard to do. And again, ask me how I know. I've done it many, many times. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. All right. So if you're going to try cold calling, again, cold call the companies that you know are spending money. Cold calling broke companies, you're going to waste a lot of time, man. And I would recommend spending your time on instead figuring out a marketing method that is going to get people to contact you, right? That's the difference. Cold call is push marketing. It's because you're pushing your message out onto your audience, whereas pull marketing is where you inbound marketing, right? Where you get people coming to you, and you can do that through marketing, through cold email, still push marketing, but I think it's a bit more inviting instead of a cold call. Hopefully that's clear. Moving on. That was duplicated.